So
This meeting is being recorded.
And this meeting is being recorded just for everybody's sake. We have been putting all of these up on our website for people who can't attend. So welcome to our final session, session 6. And today's agenda includes speakers from Empire State Development. We have Johanna Walsick with us, and Homes and Community Renewal. Patricia O'Reilly is here with us. They are going to share not just the programs that they run, because a lot of you already know the programs, but how to be most competitive in receiving some of the grant funding and how to approach some of those grant funds. We will then go into a short discussion about metrics and what to do with them. So what other places are doing with metrics to affect policy change or to share wins, and then continuing the conversation. So we have a very interactive session planned for the last hour, as I just mentioned, where we will all do some group workshopping together on a virtual platform. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our speakers. So from Empire State Development, we have Johanna, as I mentioned. Empire State Development, the mission is to promote a vigorous and growing state economy and encourage business investment and job creation. Where Homes and Community Renewal, the mission is to build, preserve, and protect affordable housing and home ownership across the state. They do other things as well, as many of you know, and Patricia will dive deeper into that. Johanna currently serves as a senior project manager at the Western New York office of Empire State Development, and she is mainly focused on the management of the office's community development programs and their targeted projects, including the $65 million East Side Corridor Economic Development Fund and the Better Buffalo Fund. Prior to joining ESD, Johanna actually worked at the LISC Western New York office, so some of you might already know her from that capacity, spending her time on a myriad of community development and engagement initiatives. And prior to that, she also spent several years working in homeless housing advocacy and on energy efficiency initiatives in all 5 boroughs of New York City. We also have Patricia joining us here, who is the director of the New York Main Street program at Homes and Community Renewal. In addition to overseeing that portfolio for the New York Main Street portfolio, she also supervises the New York State Downtown Revitalization Initiative, the DRI projects that are assigned to HCR, as well as the Buffalo Main Streets Initiative program. And she has worked at HCR for 13 years, very impressive, and has worked with over 175 communities throughout New York State, providing technical assistance and financial resources. So Patricia and Johanna, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you.
Good morning.
Okay, so I think we're going to start a little bit about talking about Homes and Community Renewal, which I know most of you are familiar with in some facets. So you can go to the next one. So I already kind of went over this. We're just going to talk about our programs that we have, as well as talking more about how to prepare a competitive application and how best to prepare to apply in terms of capacity and grant administration. So those of you who are familiar with HCR, obviously we are very homes, housing heavy in most of our development offices, and I work within the Office of Community Renewal. So those are our local grant programs that we are awarded directly to municipalities and not-for-profits rather than developers. And so I'm sure some of you are familiar with some of these programs: New York Main Street, the Neighborhood Preservation Program, Home, and some of the other ones. So I know sometimes it gets confusing about what is an LPA or how do you become an LPA. So for OCR, we refer to programs or we take a local program administrator approach. And so HCR provides grants to municipalities or not-for-profits. And if you receive a grant, you become the local program administrator. So whoever that municipality or not-for-profit is that applied and is successful, then you become an LPA. So LPAs are responsible for administering the grant locally. So they, the grant funds, they grant the funds to individual property owners or business owners, right? So they're kind of that overarching organization who does, identify the specific projects that are going to receive funding, and then they enter into contracts with those property owners or business owners. So the LPAs make all those local funding decisions, and they're also responsible for compliance. Okay, next one. So I'll talk a little bit about the eligible New York Main Street activities. So we generally have about 2 to 4 million available annually. So we have been, this funding source is available within the consolidated funding application that is available generally annually for the past several years. And so that's how you access this funding. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with our main activities. So facade renovations, interior commercial renovations, as well as residential interior renovations and streetscape projects. We also have a stabilization activity as well as technical assistance. So I want to talk more about those two categories as, no, you can go to the next one. And so these two that you may not be as familiar with, but we have a lot of communities or neighborhoods that are not quite ready to apply for a full out building renovation program or submit a downtown anchor application. So we have these two activities that you can start out with if it makes sense. So sometimes LPAs or property owners don't have the administrative capacity or financial capacity to take on a lot of the work up front to apply for like a building renovation fund. So the New York Main Street Technical Assistance activity was created to help improve readiness to participate in a future renovation activity. So maybe you have that one big white elephant property in your neighborhood that's sitting vacant and you don't know what to do with it. The community doesn't know what to do with it. So you could apply for technical assistance funds to do a reuse study or feasibility analysis to determine what those potential future uses could be of that larger building. Maybe property owners are interested in participating in a facade renovation program, but they really want to have designs developed first, get cost estimates to make sure that they can have the financial capacity to actually participate in the program, and then all that front work is done ahead of time. So that really gives you an organization or business owners and property owners a lot of work that's done up front and makes an application more competitive if you were going to apply for a building renovation program in the future. We also have our downtown stabilization program, which is another avenue, is the first step to tackling some of those larger projects. So this project activity is intended to eliminate barriers to redevelopment of like mixed use buildings. So maybe there is an asbestos issue that's preventing the building to become renovated or maybe attractive to a developer. Maybe the building just needs to be physically stabilized due to structural issues or something else. So this is kind of one of those first steps, whereas you could apply for downtown stabilization funds generally for a single building to address some of those environmental issues or structural issues ahead of time, so that that's kind of one step that's taken care of, and then be more ready to apply for a building renovation program. And so both of these activities are eligible and part of the annual CFA.
Patricia, I actually have a question about that. So if say like in any of the districts in Buffalo, anyone can apply through the CFA for a downtown stabilization project through Main Streets.
Yep, absolutely. So most people are familiar with like you can have a single project and it's an anchor project, whereas you do a project and then, but you have like a CFO at the end, right? It's ready for occupancy, it's complete. Whereas like downtown stabilization is like, we know we're not getting a CFO at the end of this project. We have all these other things to address, but we know that's going to get us ready to be able to apply maybe for a future anchor grant or maybe something to ESD. It doesn't have to be to the Main Street program, but yes. So the technical assistance activity, as well as the stabilization, are just available activities as part of the CFA.
I also have a follow-up question. Because it's a pot of state money, is there do they divide the state equally? And I know I'm a newbie at this, so how do they determine like downstate versus upstate? Is that a thing? Or especially with like with the stabilization project where I just didn't, which is sort of outside of the other piece.
Sure. Well, with all of them, we don't really, we look at all projects or project types in general, right? So there's like the 4 different activities. You can do a full building renovation program, just a single anchor project, a technical assistance activity, or stabilization. Generally, when we do scoring, we score kind of as is, and we look at our list and see if there's any type of, where we received 10 applications in this one region and none are being funded, right? We might reevaluate what that looks like and see if there's something that we need to do to fix that. A lot of times we have, a lot of people that score in this one little area all the same, and then it's kind of, we consider geographical distribution, but usually it just kind of works out itself. So we don't really need to make too many adjustments, but we do consider that to make sure that, especially if this region had a lot of applications, making sure that those ratios look accurate, but usually we don't need to mess too much with it, and it just kind of works itself out in terms of fairness in regional distribution.
And I think Brandy might have a question. Brandy?
Is there a deadline for either of these, or is this like a rolling calendar application?
Sure, good question. So this program, so all the New York Main Street program activities, these 4 different activities are all available through the annual consolidated funding application that's released by the Regional Economic Development Council. So I think we're headed into our 12th round. And so generally the past 12 years, the announcement is made around May of when funding is available. And then applications are generally due in July. So that's how the past several decade, I guess, has gone so far. How that makes me feel old. So that's how you access the application. So it's a governor's announcement of when that funding is going to be available. So that's how you would hear about it.
Got it. Thank you.
Are there any other questions before I switch off to the next slide? All right. So now Johanna is going to share some information about the Buffalo Main Streets Initiative and the East Side Corridor Economic Development Fund.
Great, thank you. So you can go to that BMSI slide. So because of the success of the New York Main Street program across the state, you might be familiar with the Buffalo Main Street Initiative. Several of you have implemented these grants, but this was a targeted approach under the Buffalo Billion to do direct community development in the city of Buffalo. So ESD partnered with HCR to administer a Buffalo Main Street Initiative, basically modeled identical to the New York State Main Street program, but we have these targeted geographies where people can apply. So several of you have applied for this program. We just actually did a call for applications and they're under review right now. So this program has the same principles. It's a reimbursement program for facade and business renovation programs. You can go to the next slide, Syra. Within the targeted area that was on that map, there's a 2-year contract term. You have to be a nonprofit LPA, just like New York Main Street, and grants can range from $50,000 to $500,000. And property owners are subject to a 5-year regulatory term if they are to receive a grant. So the Main Street Initiative, is in line with New York Main Streets, and in our administration of the BMSI program since 2014, we learned that a lot of property owners, specifically on the east side, could not access the Main Street grants, particularly because it's a reimbursement program. So the property owners are required under BMSI and New York Main Streets to pay the full project costs and then get reimbursed by the state. And we learned that this was super prohibitive to many property owners. So with the announcement of the $65 million East Side corridor program, which you can go to the next slide, Syra. This was an initiative that ESD developed kind of in response to everything that we had heard through BMSI and generally in the community. So there's a targeted $65 million fund targeted on these 4 corridors on the east side. And we developed a commercial district program specifically for Kensington Bailey, Jefferson, Broadway, Fillmore, and MLK Park District. All of our LPAs, our wonderful LPAs, are on the call. Brandy, Essence, Sydney, Cornelius. And they are doing a targeted program that has a different structure. So Siren, if you go to the next slide, the difference with the Eastside Commercial District program is that it's still a $50,000 award, but after the owner pays their 15% contribution to the total project costs, ESD will pay the contractors directly for the balance of the fund. So we have a couple projects that have been completed or are in active construction, and we're doing a lot of lessons learned right now in terms of how we can modify the program for the next round. But we're really hoping that by removing the burden and the barrier of having it be a reimbursement program, this will help activate more activity on these corridors, and improve the businesses and provide business owners greater access to funding. So yeah, that's a nutshell. Most of you are experts in it now on this call, but it's a growing program. It's changing, but hopefully we'll have future rounds and more activity in those corridors.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about how to really prepare to become a program administrator. So in terms of kind of submitting a competitive application, right? So the work that needs to be done to prepare an application, as well as what you need to do to be ready to actually administer one. And Johanna, this obviously overlaps, so feel free to jump in if you want to identify anything. But all of these both apply to the New York Main Street program or the Buffalo Main Streets Initiative. So obviously the Buffalo Main Streets Initiative and the New York Main Street program operate pretty similarly, have the similar guidelines. There's a little bit difference, but it's both reimbursement, and the building limits are pretty similar. So if you have any questions on why should I apply over this or over that, definitely feel free to ask. But I'd say that the Buffalo Main Street is less competitive, right? So it's just you're focused that awards are all going within the city of Buffalo, whereas for Main Street you're competing against the entire state. So just something to keep in mind of one over the other.
And then for the East Side targeted program, right now we have assigned LPAs for this first round of funding. The program is always evolving, so we're constantly considering how we can change or modify. But right now we do just have our targeted LPAs that are assigned. So that's a little bit different. But I would say all the principles in terms of identifying need and everything that Patricia's going to go into apply for Main Streets, BMSI, and commercial districts. The one difference I failed to mention too for the East Side Commercial District program is that none of the grants can be used for renovating interior housing spaces. So we will only support if there's like a window on the second floor of your facade, ESD funds can be used for that, but we don't get into housing with that program.
Okay, that's a really helpful clarification too, because with Main Street, obviously you can assist residential units.
And let me ask one question on that then, Johanna. So if the second floor is apartments, if it's mixed use, but the first floor is commercial, then would it not be eligible for a facade?
It's eligible. We won't cover with ESD funds any of the improvements that are made to the residential components unless they're on the exterior facade. So if it's like windows in apartments, that's part of the facade repair, we will fix those. The grant funds don't cover any housing improvements.
Got it. Thank you for that.
Because ESD is an economic development agency focused on the commercial corridors and
right.
businesses.
Okay, so that's helpful information too. So if you can go back, yeah, thank you. And so if you have a program that you've identified there's a lot of need for creating or improving upper story residential units, then Main Street's probably your better avenue if that's what is what the participants in your neighborhood really want to do. So really the first step is identifying need, right? And that's not just need where it's like, oh, it looks like this neighborhood needs something, right? It does have to be start from the ground up, right? You do need property owners who are willing to also participate in a program, right? Because they're the ones who are going to be paying for the improvements and participating and following the rules. So although it might look like you really want to do something within the neighborhood or corridor, you really need all the property owners and business owners on board. Otherwise, the program wouldn't be successful. So you do need to identify and evaluate all the need within the neighborhood first. What are the existing conditions? What are local priorities? And how would you decide to choose projects and seek funding? So how will these projects that you're proposing address the needs identified, right? Making sure that, oh, this is what we need in our community, and this is how this project and this program is going to help specifically address, that need. So definitely start with a project or an initiative, not necessarily the funding source. You want to identify property or business owners, again, that are interested and able to participate in the program, have eligible scopes of work, available financing since it's reimbursement, and also agreeable to the program requirements. So all of that information is really important to let all property owners, business owners to know ahead of time so they know what is expected of them if they're interested in participating. So again, I talked a little bit about, establishing the administrative capacity. So when we're reviewing applications, we want to know and see that there is the capacity to administer this program. It's a lot of work. If you're receiving $300,000 and you want to assist just even 10 properties, it's a lot of work in terms of helping create scopes of work and doing procurement and following rules, environmental review. And a lot of you know this who have administered these programs, right? It's a lot of work, it's a lot of dedication. So we definitely want to see that you have experienced staff, that you have the capacity to dedicate your time to this work. Relying strictly on volunteers would be very, very difficult. Making sure that you're discussing collaboration with other organizations is really important. So maybe, some of your organizations may overlap in neighborhoods, or you don't have the capacity in a certain area and you want to ask this other organization to help provide that. So in terms of, say, construction monitoring or creating scopes of work, again, obviously you can always hire consultants, but you might have those resources right within your other neighboring community organizations. So I think collaboration is really important, and we already see a lot of that in Buffalo already. So again, making sure you're familiar with all the rules and the regulations of the program before you're reaching out to property owners and talking to them as well, so you can communicate that. So a little bit more into preparing a strong application, making sure that you understand the eligible activities, the program, the funding limits. If you're proposing ineligible items or going against the rules, it's going to be hard for your application to achieve high scores. Making sure that the proposed activities actually address the needs, right? So how this is actually, this program is the best fit for what you're looking to do. Clear budgets, identifying specific projects with eligible scopes, financing from property owners, showing that property owners understand all the rules and regulations. So, New York Main Street, again, it's only 2 to 4 million that we have. We usually have at least 10 million in applications each round. So it's super, super competitive. So we want to give everybody, and it takes a lot to just even put together an application. So we want to be clear on everything that you need to do to make it more competitive before you consider applying. So definitely find those opportunities in an application to show that, yep, I understand all the rules, the property owners understand all the rules, and we're ready to go. So I'll just touch on this a little bit, but more so if you are, do receive funding, some type of formalization of those internal procedures. So a marketing strategy, how are you going to market the program? If you don't have expertise in-house to develop a scope of work or monitor construction, making sure that you're going to be hiring someone to, take care of those things that you don't have the experience or expertise in-house. Understanding procurement, construction management, and reimbursement, right? So it is a reimbursement program. So it's important that the property owners understand that they need to get financing, right? For both construction and for their match component as well in order to access funds in the program and have a successful program. again,
Questions?
I'm going to just say to end just, collaborating and working with your, other neighborhood partners and other organizations is something that can really help expand your administrative capacity. A lot of people have been already doing this for so long in the community. So maybe they have template forms or things that they're already doing and they already know there's no need to kind of reinvent the wheel in terms of administering this program. So that's something to also consider.
And I would just like piggyback on, can you go to the last slide, Sarah? Thanks. So I just think too, like, and just in my experience working with a lot of you, and it's all learning curve, but I think that knowing the rules of all these programs and kind of the general thread that they all have, which is knowing your property owners, knowing the need, understanding what it takes to administer a state funded program, understanding what it takes to monitor and manage construction projects, and having yourself packaged up and ready to go should you get awarded funds. I think we're all learning together that this is what makes you successful, both in terms of getting an award, but also administering the program and helping your property owners through the process. There are so many rules that come with state funds, where Patricia and I, we're responsible for making sure people follow the rules, and we can do whatever we can to be flexible with some of the rules, but at the end of the day, it's taxpayer dollars, right? So educating your property owners on process and you all understanding what the process is makes for such a better experience for everyone because we've managed expectations. So I think that getting yourself familiar and getting your corridors ready to take this on is a great tool. I'm so glad that LISC is holding these conversations because I think it'll be better for the community in the long run if we all really understand processes and know how to communicate that and can set ourselves up for success. So I think that I know that HCR really prioritizes capacity in their application review process. So just, feel free to always reach out if you have any questions about what you need in order to be successful with ESD funding, because I'm happy to share those resources too.
Yep, and we always do presentations and webinars when the application round is open, right? So I said around that May-ish time is generally what they've done in the past. So, and we always do, an application webinar to go through all the steps, touch on all of these things more specifically and how to prepare a competitive application. So you'll have that resource as well once the available round is opened.
I would add one more piece here because Maggie is on the line. She does our lending in the LISC office. If Maggie, if you're there and want to jump on, I just wanted to share, you know more about this than I do of what we might be able to offer for the reimbursement piece. If that is prohibitive for a property owner, can they reach out to us? Can they reach out to you? What do these district managers need to know?
Thanks, Sarah. Sorry, I was eating, but the answer is always going to be, it depends. It depends on which source you're looking at. It depends on your project. But I would definitely encourage to reach out. LISC and other CDFIs can sometimes bridge things for you. So if the upfront cost is too great to bear, I'm sure we could work something out with you, with the funder. As Essence knows, these things have to really align between timing and reporting and closing. So it's, it is a challenge, but we would rather you reach out and ask than just, not apply for something. So I'm learning more as well. I'm happy to work with HCR and ESD and you and your amazing project that we need to complete to make Buffalo better. So thanks, Siren, for that. And if anyone wants to learn anything more about financing, I know some people on the call I've spoken to before about things like sources and uses, and which is basically just an elaborate way to say that you're listing the sources to fund your project, and then you're listing the uses of what you're going to use to spend that money on. Please reach out to me because we're here to help and provide assistance.
That's a great resource. Some of our local program administrators throughout the state, have a pool of funding. Sometimes they're already a type of organization that has something where they can bridge that financing, but most of them don't, right? So in order to get these projects off the ground, if you know that financing to cover the full cost before reimbursement is going to be an issue, reaching out to organizations like LISC or even local banks or anything like that, they're like, oh, you're going to have 10 people participate with this amount. Yep, we can do a low interest loan for them for that, for both a bridge loan, for the gap, for the financing, for what's going to be reimbursed, as well as, if they need their private match also to be financed. That's something that local program administrators, at least attempt to do, right? Because they know everybody wants to do something, but sometimes it's that financial piece that is the hard part to get over. So that's great. Thanks for pointing that out of what this could potentially do. And there's, other potential partners that maybe could be brought to the table.
Good morning. This is Sydney, and I had a question as I'm listening and being reminded of things, and also just thinking about past experiences with some of these various grants that are available for community and business districts. And I'm wondering, I'll say the thing that hit me, it is our tax dollars. And I'm wondering, and I'm just throwing this out there, is there a way that we can help streamline things? I think about community block grant dollars, through HUD. There are multiple streams of resources that all of us are contributing as far as our tax dollars. And, we have to work to make sure things are lined up as far as, when an application comes out, when the funding is available, when you have access to it. Isn't there a way that we could kind of work smarter from a local, county, and state to make funding available to the projects that we're working on? And has that been explored? And if it hasn't, could we explore it?
I would say, yeah, of course. I mean, we are in constant contact with the city of Buffalo. And I think that one change with even the CFA, which is, over a decade old, is that was a design process to consolidate all applications into one streamlined place and have an anticipated timeline and award for those types of programs. And then I know that ESD, for our specific capital dollars not associated with BMSI or any of these programs, we actually changed our funding cycle last year on a quarterly basis, because like you're saying, we heard that a lot of businesses couldn't wait a whole year for the CFA process to get an award or to learn about their award. So now larger companies and large scale community development projects can apply on a quarterly basis. So yes, I hear you, Sydney, and I think that it's always good to be reminded of that. You would think that all these government agencies would be all on the same page, but it's just not. So people don't even have the same budget cycles with, so it's a challenge. But I definitely hear what you're saying. And I hear that feedback and take it into consideration for the programs that I can make a difference on.
Thank you.
Other questions for our speakers?
I had a question for Patricia about the Anchor Project and Stabilization Project funds. It looks like there's a 25% match for that. Am I understanding that properly? And is there any issue using other state funds for that match, or any limits on where matching funds can come from?
Sure, good question. So, right, so for the Anchor category, you can apply between 100,000 and 500,000. The match component does have a 25% match, and that is based upon the total project cost. So if it was like a $100,000 project, then Main Street Funds could reimburse 75,000, right? And then there'd be that 25,000 match component. So it is based upon the total project cost. So we can reimburse up to 75% of the total project cost, not to exceed 500,000 in terms of the Anchor project. And so there is that match component. And what was did you have a second question as well?
Yeah, were there any limits on what source of
funds?
funds
The source of funding, sure.
matching?
So we do want to see some private match component, in the game. Sometimes if you're a not-for-profit organization, that can be more difficult. We don't have a specific percentage. I mean, generally I'd say 10%. So I think we'd want to see some private skin in the game. So not that full 25% covered by another one, but I think it depends upon the case. We could be flexible, so there's no requirement per se, but I think it just makes the application more competitive if you're showing that there's additional funds in that, not just public. And we don't, and there's no provisions on like the type of match or where it comes from, as long as it's invested directly into the building, right? Since the building renovation program. So if there's expenses beyond that, it's not considered, but if anything that's directly invested into the building will be able to be considered as match.
Okay, thank you.
Any other final questions? And our speakers' email addresses are right here. This presentation will be on our website, so you can follow up with them if you have additional questions that arise. Thank you so much, Johanna and Patricia, for joining us today.
Thanks everyone. It's nice to see you all.
Yes, thank you. Have a good day and a great week, and Happy New Year.
No problem. Take care.
Wonderful.
So
well, that
all
was
of you don't leave. Please don't leave. You all don't have to leave. I could just see everyone signing off and Siren and I being like, wait a minute, there's a whole hour left.
Well, I see that there's several things going on in the chat and I haven't been able to look at it. So I hope we didn't miss any questions there.
No, it's only Maggie saying she was sneaking a chocolate chip cookie when you asked her to speak.
Oh, okay. Well,
that's it. I've been monitoring the chat. I got my job.
Thanks, Kate. So now I'm going to shift just for the next 15 to 20 minutes or less, depending how long this takes, on metrics. So I wanted to share a couple examples of how I've seen metrics being collected across multiple districts. So, not just individually, but how several districts might collect the same type of metrics to then use collectively and also individually for your own organizations. And so this link will take you again to the box folder, which we have made public. We will have it for you. And there are two, let me come back to this. There are two folders, one called Measuring Impact and one called Sharing Impact. In this Measuring Impact folder, there are three different pieces. There are two different quarterly reports from two different states. And these states collect these quarterly reports across their districts, and they're the same quarterly report. So I just wanted to share with you what these look like in some other places. I think there's an opportunity for us to co-create what this could look like for our districts if we want to, if this is something that this group of people want to take on. I know I've shared this with one or two of you on the screen already, but this was the manager's report that we collected quarterly in the state of Oregon. It's very interactive, which I liked a lot. You can write, business name, XYZ. Are they retail or a restaurant, professional? Are they new or relocated into the central business district? They brought 5 new employees and some comments, and then you can add more businesses to that. We were also collecting things like business closures and relocations out of the Main Street district. So again, putting in their business name and you can click, oh, a restaurant closed. It was 7 years old and there were 3 lost employees. We were also collecting things like business and building interior and exterior renovation projects. So if you do apply for something and receive some state funding, and you're able to do a front facade and an awning and some other interior commercial renovations, you can write the building name here, YTU, and the total dollars invested, the source of funds. We were also, collecting other property changes. So that could be a new building, building additions, building losses, demolitions, the dollar impact of changes, the source of those funds as well, and public improvements. So if you were doing a streetscape improvement, I know Jefferson Avenue is having the whole streetscape renovations happening. What was the description of the project? Was the sidewalk, changed out and there are new benches and banners and, those kinds of things invested? What was the dollar amount? What was the source of those funds, federal, state, or local? how many employees did that project bring to downtown? So were there 10 contractors working on this project that were, managing those public improvements? We were also looking at new and closed housing units within the district, within your district boundaries. So what is the status? Was it a new housing unit? Was it closed? Was it condos, apartments, affordable housing, and the number of units that were added or closed? Volunteer hours, we mentioned volunteer management last session. So really looking at categorizing that and capturing it and putting some monetary value to that to show to funders. The total number of volunteers, promotional activities. So all of your events, all of the different events that are happening, whether your organization is doing it or whether somebody else is doing it. And then commentary for each committee. So, we've talked about, we did a whole session on promotions and a whole session on design and business development. So what is happening in all of those spaces? How are we moving the ball forward? So we were categorizing and collecting all of these things quarterly and would use those, and I will show you how we use those. But before I show you how we were using those tools, I wanted to share with you this other quarterly report that was provided to us by ASE. So Irema Olivencia, who came and spoke session 3 at this training series, provided this to me to share with you. She told me it was okay to share. This is in Pennsylvania. So they're also collecting quarterly reports. It looks a little bit different. The information that they're collecting is the number of operational businesses, number of micro enterprises. So they're very focused on those less than 5 employees, small startups in the district. The business ownership by race and ethnicity. So they were categorizing it by that too. Vacant commercial properties in each quarter. So they're showing, which ones are vacant now, which ones are still vacant, which ones have been filled. They are capturing the number of convenings of business owners. So who's convening them? Where did it take place? How many people attended? What was the discussion? For their district, it's important for them to meet with the local police district, to identify any nuisance properties or other problems that prevent residents and customers from patronizing the business district and the target area. So they were capturing this in every quarter. Direct assistance to micro enterprises. So this tells me that they really are tracking, and it's probably part of their strategy around micro enterprises and those small businesses under 5 employees. So how many individual meetings did the district manager have with these micro enterprise owners? They identify 10 storefronts that would benefit from physical improvements and work with 5 of them, commit to working with 5 of them. They are identifying locations in need of security improvements and pursuing upgrades to at least 15 storefronts for exterior lighting and installing at least 5 security cameras in their year. So they're tracking that over those 4 quarters. Additional technical assistance and business advice to owners of at least 20 micro enterprises. So they must have a lot of micro enterprises in their district because this is what they're focusing on. And then managing some of the real estate development in the business mix. So maintaining a commercial properties available list. We talked a lot about this in session 3 with business and property inventories, creating a business directory, providing input on zoning issues that are prohibitive to business growth. So these are just some examples of what other districts are collecting. I just wanted to open up the conversation with all of you to see, is this something of use? Would we want to do this? Create something that all of us are tracking the same information. I see Essence emphatically nodding yes.
I think so.
It. Absolutely. Yes. And to do the same information, I think is critical, Siren, for us to have a full picture, so we're all looking at the same thing. I mean, obviously it'll be changing, but yeah, I think this is great. Absolutely.
George, did you want to say something?
Oh, I definitely, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me? Oh, okay. Yeah, I was thinking as you were speaking, both of those things, if you could even just hybridize it into one, because I could think of a lot of it's real straightforward. It's something you could work with, and it's just on the ground raw data you need to be able to do anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's exactly what we could offer.
Have, thinking along those lines. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Well, I was curious. I thought about this. the people that have already gotten some grants and stuff that the speakers were speaking about, where did they, how did they come up with the people as such? You know what I mean? The people that they are working with and they're reviewing now and things like how did they identify them, and did they do some kind of walk through the neighborhood thing, or do they advertise it somewhere? Or
Well, I would ask that the LPAs that have received funding to share some information about that. And also, George, I would encourage you to check out session 3, which is on our website, which has a whole lot about like how to keep property inventories and business inventories and understanding business clusters and your business mix. So we went deep on that for session 3. But anybody that was an LPA wants to answer, George?
Yeah, George, it's a mix of a few things, understanding the timeline and when the grant is going to be released and open. You want to start, a year, 6 months out, actively engaging in your business association, if it is in the district, to speak and share the opportunity that's coming out. But then also doing that raw canvassing and going up and down in that target area, because the BMSI in particular has these target areas that they will allow for the funds to be administered in. So if you know that target area is close, if it's in your footprint, going up and down the streets, contacting your the business owners, the property owners on your contact list, holding information sessions, because what will happen is as you apply, and as she shared with you, the lady shared, you have to already think these things through in terms of what properties, how much that budget is, what the scopes of work are. You'll have to show that those property owners that are interested have the finances to go through the reimbursement process. So you do a lot of planning it's not like you can just say, well, we have a few properties that we think will like to participate, and we talk to a couple of property owners. It's something that's detailed. So you want to get ahead of it by just doing that raw reaching out and contacting and having conversations, one-on-one conversations, letters of commitment, things like that to support your application.
Cool.
And George, I would just add, if you, I don't know if you already know everybody else on the call. I know this is your first time jumping in, but if you don't know Sydney and Cornelius and Andrea, and I know Athena was on the line here, they're all representing Jefferson Avenue.
Oh, nice.
And so,
Nice.
I would make sure I can send an email intro for all of you later on. George is a property owner on Jefferson Avenue. Mm-hmm.
He is, but I'd also like to welcome him in his first official LISC meeting as our newest LISC Western New York AmeriCorps member. So he is also going to be he's working with both Heart of the City Neighborhood and Fruitvale Community Land Trust. And we're proud to have him on board as a LISCer through
Thank you.
AmeriCorps.
Proud to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I'm going to show one more tool here.
Moment. I just
Yeah,
wanted to piggyback on what Essence was sharing, and I'll say besides engaging the business owners, it's also important to include the residents. So I'll say block clubs and other things, because another thing that needs to be identified is whatever business is coming into the business corridor is actually meeting a need that community members want and desire. Because I'll say we've had to deal with, someone wanted to open up another liquor store, and I'll say along Jefferson and Ferry, that's not something that the community wanted when there was already one within a mile and half a mile radius. So community members are also, all the stakeholders, I'll just say, engage stakeholders as a whole and know your community members as far as, you build a relationship over years of just advocating and trying to make improvements to your community and your business districts. And welcome. Look forward to meeting and talking with you more.
Thank you, Sydney. I think that's a really important piece that sometimes gets overlooked, that the commercial business district is supporting the needs and providing goods and services to the residents around it. So making sure that those residential needs are met is a huge function for commercial business districts. So one more thing I wanted to share that's in this folder, which you'll all have access to, is this measuring impact for Main Street transformation. This is a document that the National Main Street Center had put out. Let me get to the beginning. There are just a couple of really useful tools in here, like reinvestment statistics. So some of the things that I shared with you, like number of jobs created, number of public improvement projects completed, or new construction projects completed. This document has definitions of what all of those things are and different collection methods. So this is just a helpful tool to better understand how to go about collecting some of these things. A lot of it is just boots on the ground. Like you're on the ground, you know when a business is opening up, you know what rehab project is going on in your district. And so just tallying those, and I used to just keep a piece of paper on my desk and, you know, keep track of those things as they were happening. But this is just a tool to show you, you know, some of those collection methods. Something else that I thought was interesting that this document provides is some thematic tools for metric keeping and key performance indicators. So basically what is telling you that you're actually approaching your goals and you're reaching your strategies. And so this document includes like, if your strategy for your district is to be more family friendly or be an agricultural center or a entertainment and nightlife district or an arts district, they provide several different possible approaches to projects or programs that you could be focusing on within your district, but also indicators that you can be tracking to assess whether you're actually getting there. So for example, in the agricultural economy, their approaches include building partnerships between culinary businesses and local farms or community gardens, working with real estate brokers and entrepreneurs to fill downtown buildings with, you know, and the number of farmers markets organized by program or business. And so these are just some examples that I thought were interesting that they were sharing: elder friendly and aging in place, food districts, entertainment and nightlife. Interesting that they include a millennials category, but I think that's probably more of like, you know, bringing more youth to downtown or engaging them in your strategy. So this is here as well as a tool. The final thing that I want to share is in this folder called Sharing Impacts, how I've seen some of these tools used before. So this flyer is something that I had created in another lifetime, it feels like, where we used all of that data that we were collecting quarterly to send out an annual, just like a 2-pager accomplishments sheet. So sharing the number of days of civic events and activities that brought over 100,000 customers downtown, or the number of downtown retail walking maps printed, or the number of storefront improvements completed, number of grants received, you know, awards, or number of hanging flower baskets and bike racks installed. We would include things like the net new businesses or expansions and relocations, the net new employees of that year, dollars in building and business reinvestments. This was a really interesting pie chart because when I had started in this organization, we were 100% funded by property owners through an EID, which here it's called a BID, Business Improvement District. There was an Economic Improvement District, and we were able to prove the BID money is red. So after this 1 or 2 years, we were able to leverage that funds with an additional $140,000 in investment. So we were able to use those tools to like share our successes in this way, and also upcoming strategies, what we were planning on doing the following year. I have one more example of a similar thing from a different organization where they didn't use the numbers as much, but they just said, these are all the projects that we did to beautify our business corridor. These are all the things that we did to bring economic vitality or to promote the district, different events and things, how our organization is growing. So again, it's kind of sparsed out across these 4 themes or topic areas, and accomplishments and the next steps from their strategic plan. The final thing is that at the state level, and this could happen for, you know, if we want to do this, even just to say like East Side commercial corridors, West Side commercial corridors, Buffalo commercial corridors, like we can create what we want. But this is just an example of what I've seen where at the state level, they are collecting all of these quarterly reports, and because they're all the same data that's being collected, they're able to put some of those dollar amounts across the state to say cumulatively, this is the number of building rehab projects since our Oregon Main Street program started, but 129 rehab projects happened in 2020, or 280 net new jobs happened within our commercial districts in 2020. We had 13,000 volunteer hours in 2020. So I would love to be able to, you know, work with all of you if this is of interest, to understand what data is really important, what's going to tell that story, and then how do we package it so that we could affect policy change. So something that I did see in my tenure as a Main Street manager was that the state was able to use these reinvestment statistics to get additional SHPO funding for historic preservation rehabs, building rehabs. And it was a lot of money. It was like several $1,000,000 that they were able to prove, but they had to prove that it was worth the state doing that, you know? And so this is just some ways of how we could go about it, and we could do it in a way that works for us. So any thoughts, questions?
Carl had a comment in the chat, something about, I said, another good tool is the Census Business Builder Small Business Edition. It's primarily for small business owners who need key data for their business plan or to better understand their potential market. It presents data for a single type of business or a single industry cluster, and then he provided the link.
Thank you, Carl. Yeah, that's really wonderful. I would also add that I think there are some a variety of tools in the back of this measuring impact for Main Street transformation document as well. So it would be great to just put all of these in one spot somewhere for all of us, including the one that Carl shared or anything that might be local. But there are several different data resources back here: American Fact Finder, Policy Map. And I would say that a lot of these things, like we used Walk Score and the Census Bureau and Policy Map and Fact Finder on our the open source tool that we've shared with you all. I think all of you have probably seen it, where you can turn on and off, you know, number of housing units or bike routes and bus shelters and things like that. If anyone wants to like go one-on-one on that, you're welcome to do so.
He also said, welcome, you can get data by location or zip code.
Oh, great. Yeah, awesome. So what do we think? What do we think about, you know, putting something like this together? I know we've heard from a few people. Yeah, I'm seeing some nods.
You can also unmute and speak.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I think this is something for our task force.
All right. Well, that is it.
I concur.
Drew, you asked for the resource in the chat again. Are you talking about the downloadable materials for session 6? I will be doing that at the end. I'll be sharing the mapping tool.
Oh, the mapping tool. I can get that for you here really quickly. So this is the mapping tool, just as a refresher for anybody who hasn't seen it in a while. I will go ahead and drop this link right into the chat. There you go. All right, well, it's 11 o'clock and I think we can shift to our interactive session. Essence just brought up a task force. So I think that's a great segue into what we're going to be doing next. Do we need a 5-minute stretch break or bio breaks for anybody, or keep on going? I see George saying something. I don't know if that was a yes or a no. If you want to just drop a note in the chat and say yes or no, that would be great.
Just going to the bathroom. I'll be right back.
Okay. Why don't we
Sarah,
just take, why don't we take 3 minutes and come back? We'll start right at 11:05. How about that?
And I'm going to share the mural link in the chat right now so that they have it when they get back.
You know what? I'll go ahead and do it because I think I have to share it from the facilitator standpoint.
Okay.
I'm not totally sure, but here we go. All right.
Hi, Tyra. It's Brandy. I feel like I haven't seen you in forever. So good to see you.
I was trying to restrain myself from saying hi to people out loud, but since you opened up the door, Brandy.
I'm sorry.
How are you doing?
It's exciting to see people. I still feel like I'm living like a hermit lifestyle because of everything that's going on. So it's always good to see a familiar face. So
Yeah, we should chat sometime soon. I know you have a lot of new things that you can share, so I'm eager to hear what's going on.
absolutely.
I also, very quickly, I see George Winfield is on the call. I don't think we've met, but I know who you are. So, and actually, I may be reaching out to you soon as well.
Well, hello, Ty. That's true. I think we haven't met, but I'm familiar with you. So it's glad to get to make a face to face.
Great.
So George, Tyra is our deputy director, and
Mm-hmm.
Tyra, I'm not sure if you saw my email announcing George's position as our newest LISC AmeriCorps member.
Oh, congratulations.
So he's
Thank you
working with
very
Heart of the City and Fruit Belt Community Land Trust, and this was his first week.
Okay. Now, George, from what
Yeah.
I recall, you live in the Northland area. Is that correct? Or
Yes,
no?
I live on the corner of Northland and Jefferson. I own a property there right a block away from Canisius College.
Okay. Yes, it's coming back to me now. And I remember there was an article about you that I saw like in the New York Times. Is that?
Yeah, that was the Washington, the Wall Street Journal. Yeah, that was.
Oh,
yeah,
well,
that
I'm
was
sorry, the Wall Street Journal. Both prestigious favors, but actually, I will probably be reaching out to you later this afternoon. So expect a call from me.
Sure thing.
Sorry,
Well,
Siren.
hi, Tyra. Welcome. Are you jumping on to see how this all
Yeah,
works?
I wanted to see how things are going. I wanted to support the LISC team. I wanted to support all the people that are here joining you today. I don't mean to interrupt. It's support and curious.
Yeah, no, it's not an interruption at all. Welcome. Glad to have you. So we did drop in the chat a link to this mural board. So if you can go ahead and click on that, you will see what I see here. And so I will keep my screen share up just for anybody who might be on a phone or who is having trouble with it. I see people jumping on right now at the bottom. As you can see on my end, I see little like bubbles of like a visiting owl. And if you have a picture, your picture is there. So I will let people jump on. For those that don't know, I am currently taking part in a graduate program at the International Center for Creative Studies at Buffalo State. And so I've been learning a whole lot of cool techniques and tools. And so this is a little bit, I thank you all for joining me on this journey as I try some of these things out with you today. We'll go through a little bit of an agenda here. So once you jump on, I see a lot of people are here. On the top right, you can see a little piece of paper that looks like it looks like a piece of paper, and it says outline. You might be seeing it differently from me because I'm the owner of this board. So
it's slightly different. It is slightly different.
So Kate, if you see it or could help people navigate it, that would be really helpful. If you click on the outline, once you find it, you can follow along with me on these numbers. Another thing that you could do is you can click on the S on my name and you can follow me. So wherever I go, your screen will automatically jump to it. So you could choose either of those things. If you're really tech savvy and you want to just like look at everything, you can actually just zoom out and zoom in and do it on your own as well. So I will jump to the setup and the goals here. So we've heard several things from you. I have some quotes coming forward soon about keeping this conversation going and identifying the next steps for corridor organizations beyond this workshop series. So some of the goals for this are identifying what are the shared goals of your organizations. So if we were to convene corridors across the city or the Western New York region, what would be the purpose? What are the aspirations? What do we want to accomplish? And what are the sticky points that we can address together and tackle? So we'll use some techniques to address a few of these things. So as I mentioned, I am a student right now of the creative problem solving model. There's several different methodologies. This is one of many, but there are 4 different areas where we could be using different tools. So we can clarify an idea and get clear on something together and co-create that. We can ideate and come up with lots of new novel thinking to an idea. We could develop ideas and strengthen them, or we can move into implementation. Part of this strategy is to diverge and converge in each of these phases. So when we're in the divergent thinking mode, we want to defer judgment. So rather than talking and addressing something that someone else had just said, we want to just keep adding ideas, go for quantity, seek novelty, and make connections. So I am going to ask all of you to share your ideas out loud as you're typing them into sticky notes so that other people can hear them and build off of your ideas. In convergence, we will think of challenges and positives. Typically start with positives and give new ideas a chance. So something is out of the box or seemingly, a little bit weird or wonky, know that we can improve those ideas. Know that it's still something that you can use and that we can build while also keeping our goals in mind. So we'll see if we can get to, divergence and convergence today. The reason why we're doing this, so this is what we've heard. We were asked to convene a bid task force or a commercial district task force to discuss funding options. We have also heard these 2 quotes in these surveys that have come through the last several sessions. So we want to see this group taking on something as a group, getting to know and work with each other better post meetings, and getting folks connected and talking to share ideas, successes, failures. Those are things that we have heard from this group that people want to do. And because of that, so it sounds like there's, a commercial district convening function to get to know each other, to share best practices, to identify funding. But I would like to enter and clarify a little bit better and better understand how might a corridor collaborative help strengthen commercial district organizations going forward so that it's really clear what our goals and aspirations are collectively. If time allows, we might be able to move into an ideation phase where we can come up with addressing solutions to some of the sticky points or things that might be stopping us from reaching our collective goals. We have also heard that projects, people want to take on projects as a group together, so we could ideate there as well. Any questions before we move into a little bit of a warm up? Are people ready for this? Is this a little too out of the box? I see some people nodding. All right. So we're going to do a warm up. First of all, I would like everyone to just test out Mural. So everybody should be able to click on a sticky note. If you can write your name and your organization, the district that you represent. Great, I see some people are able to do it. Whoa, Drew, you figured out how to actually draw with a pen. Cool.
I don't know.
I'll be back on my computer.
What's that, Sydney?
I said I'll be back on my computer. Just I don't know if somebody hit the power cord or what, but I lost you guys as far as my computer. But I'll be back on momentarily.
Okay, good, no problem. Drew, if you click on it and you double click, you should be able to just write your name. There you go. All right, I still see people typing in and testing. Great. So if there's someone having trouble typing, the other thing that you can do is just let us know and I can type things in for you, or Kate can type things in for you. We can help with that. So step 2, let's practice framing. in this tool, in this clarifying stage, we're going to use a tool that re-engineers problems as questions. So instead of a problem that's close-ended or as answers with a yes or no, we want to ask it in a way that has an open-ended question using these statement starters. So there's a how-to, how might, in what ways might, what might be all the ways. And so that opens up those questions and re-engineers them, re-engineers problems as questions. I have a little bit of a warm-up scenario here that is completely bizarre and wonky and disconnected from the question at hand. And the reason for that is because we want to practice framing problems as questions and not solving the problem yet. So similar to a physical warm-up, you might stretch your body before you go for a run. This warm-up stretches your brain to prepare for the actual question that's going to be coming soon. So I just want to spend a couple minutes with this warm-up. So I'm going to uncover the warm-up question. The warm-up question is, if a new technology company invents a brain chip that can hold unlimited knowledge and can put it in your brain, what questions might you ask to understand how the chip will function? I'll give you one example. So if I'm wondering, will this brain chip affect my intelligence? The answer to that is a yes or no. But to make it an open-ended question, I would ask, how might this brain chip affect my intelligence? So I'm going to ask all of you to go ahead and start typing out some questions in this framing, starting with how to or how might. I see some people starting. Does it go well with chip dip? And I'm going to push to get at least 15 bullet points up there. There is some science to say that the first set of ideas that come out will be sort of typical, the ones that are commonly brought up. The second wave might be weird and unusual, and the third wave, we really want to push for that third wave because that is where novel and useful ideas might come out. Your brain will be making connections between those typical ones and the weird ones, and we'll start to put those together. Wow, there's some deep answers already coming up on here. And if you wouldn't mind jumping on your mics and sharing out loud, because as you remember, one of the ground rules, we want to build off of each other's ideas.
I'll go. I said, how's it going to affect me? How might it affect me going through an airport security?
That's a good one.
Especially the ones with the x-ray. Will it light up?
Anyone else? I see someone saying, where does this chip pull its infinite knowledge from? So how could we frame that with a how to or how might? I'll say something. I know that on a Zoom call, it's hard for everybody to get on the mic at once. So I'll go ahead and start just announcing some of them out loud. How might the brain chip cause long-term effects to someone's health? How might it affect my emotions? How might the chip integrate that knowledge into my own? In what ways might this chip pull its infinite knowledge from? How does the brain chip interact with neural pathways? In what ways might it affect my sleep? How might this chip impact going through security airports? I actually see, as I'm saying this out loud, more people are typing in. So maybe this is helping to build some connections and come up with new ideas. All right, everyone put in one more bullet point, and then we'll move on to the actual question at hand. How does the chip fight COVID? How might the chip fight COVID? How might this compare to medicines and research that combat? How can the chip help me zoom on mural with my brain instead of my fingers? How might this chip be used to make me a product for some company? Great. This is really good. Thank you everybody for engaging in this.
I could do a political one. How might Bill Gates access my brain?
Oh,
But it's a
okay.
joke, everybody. It's just a joke.
But you saying that, Kate, makes me think of new things too about
I
how
know.
my right.
So
So yeah,
I didn't type it. I didn't type it in.
Wonderful. So now that we've had a little bit of a warm up, I'm going to move into the actual question at hand. So if you follow along on the outline and click on refresher board, this just refreshes us on what we are looking at, what our actual question is. So again, we were asked to convene a group to discuss funding. We would like to see this group take on a project together. We would like to get folks talking to share ideas, successes, and failures beyond this training. I see Sydney's just jumping back on too. A reminder for statement starters. So starting the question as open-ended questions, how to, how might, in what ways might, and divergent thinking guidelines. So we're going to defer our judgment for the next several minutes, try to go for quantity, seek novelty, and make connections. So the tool that we're going to use, it's called Why? What's Stopping You? And the idea of this tool is that we start from the middle. So we started with this question, how might a corridor collaborative help strengthen commercial district organizations? We're going to work from the middle up, and then we'll work from the middle down. So on the middle up, I'm going to ask the question, why? Why do we want to do this? Why are people here interested in doing this? And the point of doing that is that as you ask the why questions, more global, bigger, broader picture hopes, goals, aspirations, and strategies to pursue may come out on the other end. So we will exhaust those questions up to the top, and then we'll come back and go down, start from the middle and work down, asking the question, what is stopping us from doing this now? And this offers tactical tasks and to-dos of, the to-dos become clearer, things that we can address together to have an effective corridor collaborative convening. So it may make way for an initial agenda if we were to have a meeting after this. So I'm going to ask all of you this question. Why is it important to all of you to have a corridor collaborative? And again, we're going to respond back with the framing of how to or how might. I see someone typing in the blue over here. Whoever is typing, if you wouldn't mind jumping on and sharing it out loud.
Yeah, so I said, how might we coordinate resources to move the corridor forward as a whole?
And if you don't mind, I might drag that into one of these boxes, Drew. So I'll put that here. So then let me ask another question of why is that important? Why are we coordinating resources together? I see two other bullets here. If anyone wants to jump on and share what you're typing.
I'm not typing yet, but I would say how we can be more effective and efficient.
Do you want me to type that in for you, Sydney?
Please, because my internet is still scrolling for the mural.
Sure. So how to be more effective and efficient collectively. Did I hear you correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
I typed something somewhere, but I don't know if it did anything.
What did you type, George? I'll look for it.
Okay, and it right above the green box. I managed to find that screen, and then I just typed something straight above the green where it said where the question is in the
Oh
middle
yeah,
of
create awareness in commercial districts. How to
the
create
why,
awareness.
what's stopping you, and it's how might a court, how to create, yes, and it says what did I type? Um, I typed in the box above it. I'm kind of having problems with this, understand this box business, but I typed something in there, creates awareness in the commercial district. I tried to just type that in to see if that.
So how do we create awareness in commercial districts? I see it, George. It's there. Let me ask you, why is that,
Okay,
and why is that important? Let me ask one more time. Why is that important?
well, it's broadcasting what you're doing, so people know you're there and you're available to be worked with, as opposed to being anonymous.
And can I ask you to reframe that as a question that starts with how to, or how might, or in what ways might?
What ways might you reduce your anonymity
For districts?
for districts?
What ways might districts reduce their anonymity? Okay.
I think I wrote how might we, I can't remember exactly what I wrote, but how might we communicate more effectively?
All right. How can we communicate more effectively? Yeah, Kate, could I add that on top of Sydney's efficient and effective?
Sure.
I feel like that kind of aligns, is in a similar theme.
Correct.
And
I
it
think
looks
it's
like I
there.
can't move it because I think you might be clicked onto it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll unclick.
I see a couple others. If you want to take a moment to look at some of the other Post-it notes that other people have written, it might jog some new ideas for you. There's a few others in this blue box on the side. How to create solutions for trash pickup and beautification efforts. How to layer opportunities to holistically uplift our districts. How to bring together businesses and people together for a common economic good. How might we exchange methods and techniques to refine our approaches? How might we collect data and develop shared analyses to support our rally for modified or new programs? There's a lot of really good stuff coming through here. How to approach grantors to make alterations and changes to programs in order to better serve our districts. I see people nodding, so it sounds like there's some
Excuse me, Siren. I am back on, but I'll say my Chrome has us at ideate. I'm not on the main screen. I don't know how to like shift down.
Sure. So Sydney, if you look for the outline, there's two things you can do. You can either click on this little piece of paper on the top and it brings you an outline, and you can click on number 11. That's where we are in the outline. Or you can click on my S. There's an S at the bottom, my little avatar, and you can follow me and you will see what I'm seeing.
Okay, no, I did the 11. I'm there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what I'm going to ask people to do is to organize this and to help me organize this so that it aligns with your thinking of how these things fit together. So we have efficiency and effective collaboration. You've seen how I was taking some of these Post-it notes and putting them in order here on this graph. I would ask for all of you to, as the ones that you're adding, add them into the graph where you think that they should go. If that's not clear, let me know.
I think if we get our Y boxes up here, then we can kind of move down. What's in the Y? Is that from there? Can anybody hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. So what's in the Y boxes? You can actually just click on any of these sticky notes as long as someone else isn't clicked on it, and you can move it. So I could take
Oh,
a
I
sticky
see.
note and move it wherever. So as you're developing your ideas or your questions, you can go ahead and put them in here so that they're arranged somewhat thematically. And we'll come back to this. So I might suggest that we move, I see people have stopped moving things around. We can come back to that. Why don't we move on to the bottom half? So coming back to this initial question of how might a corridor collaborative help strengthen commercial districts? Let me ask, what is stopping this group from doing that now? And I see someone has already posted something here. So whoever put this post-it here, I would just ask to reframe it in a creative problem solving question. So how might we build trust and understanding of intent of improving a commercial district? Something like that.
In the same box, or do you want it?
Carl, there's several post-it notes. So if that was your post-it note, I would just ask you to reframe it.
Okay.
So instead of saying there's a lack of trust, how do we reframe it to say, how might we build trust? How might we? So that it becomes an
Okay.
open-ended question.
Yeah, but I'm just, the problem I have is I'm reading the arrows, what is stopping you, right?
Mhm.
And then the how-to is kind of like the next step down from that. That's how I see it. So I'm sorry, just the way I think. So let me think about that. I have a hard stop in a minute, so hopefully I can get to it.
Sure. So I'm seeing some things coming up. What is stopping us right now from doing this? How to carve out time on a consistent basis to meet and collaborate. So that's something that we can address. How might we do more effective outreach to businesses and residents? How to establish a bid and point person to coordinate efforts across our stakeholders. How to be more visible in the community at large with activities. So I'm going to ask us to do another layer on all of those and say, well, what's stopping us from being more visible in the community at large with activities? Or what's stopping us from being more effective in our outreach to businesses and residents? How to receive additional education for real estate development processes. That was just added.
Oh, sorry, this is Sydney again. I'm still having some technical issues here. My computer jumped off the Zoom
It's
again.
no problem. If you want to just, Sydney, shout out what you're thinking.
Yeah.
I can happily type things in for you.
Okay, because I would say how to bridge the gap with community members that don't have technical savviness. Because I'll say in a lot of the communities, there's a lot of elderly stakeholders that, some can't call in, some can't get on Zoom. And that I'll say COVID minimizes our visibility in some ways.
So how to increase visibility around COVID procedures.
Yes, or integrate our remote access to other stakeholders.
How to integrate remote access to other stakeholders. Okay. And so I'm seeing from this, from the bid one, there's a couple additional pieces that came out. How might we understand potential blockages from implementing bids? How might we develop solutions for potential bid blockages? How to fund beautification, how to integrate remote access. How might we host a training session for BMSI and New York Main Street grant applications? So there's one that says lack of block clubs to contact. So I would ask that whoever wrote that to address it as a creative problem solving question. So it could sound like, how might we get in better contact with block clubs? How to streamline our work. I see people are still typing fast and furiously, so I will let this roll for a little bit. I still see people typing a little bit. Okay.
Did you see Sydney's, I can't, I don't know if it's in there because I have really bad eyesight. How to build capacity for nonprofits already involved?
No, but I will add it because I don't see it somewhere else. Sydney, let me know if I'm getting this correctly. How to build capacity for
For the
nonprofits.
not already involved. Yep.
This is great. You guys are all coming up with a lot of really good ideas for things that we can start with and start tackling. So what I might suggest, if you're okay with it, and just for timing, if you don't mind me going through and sort of categorizing them a little bit and then checking in with you all to see if that, while you're still typing things out. Yeah, I see Sydney giving me a thumbs up. Okay.
Oh, excuse me, sorry.
So I'm just going to put things vertically based on how they're sort of fitting in themes. And then I'll ask you if this is all correct. And I see other people moving things around. That's great. Please do that if you feel like you know where you want to put your bullet points. And I'm going to go back up to the top and do the same thing with some organizing. So if anybody else wants to just double check the work and make sure that it's in alignment. So I see some things around policy, approaching grantors, making alterations to better serve our districts, collecting data.
Did you also get the one in the chat, Syra, how to get everyone to use the same resources for collaboration and communication?
I did not.
Okay.
Can you repeat that one more time, please,
Yep.
Kate?
How to get everyone to use the same resources, example, Google Docs, for collaboration and communication.
Mm-hmm. So I might do a little bit of the categorization offline so that we can continue the conversation here, but I'm definitely seeing some things around getting people to use similar technologies and communications platforms, identifying some ways to do that, finding funding, developing funding for beautification that doesn't create big hurdles like state funding requirements do. Teaching our stakeholders how to engage in this time of COVID looks like something that's been coming up. I see a lot of things here about bids and approaching bids, marketing projects for contractors and architects and engineers, and people are still typing, developing programs for funding or for state projects. So it looks like these are the types of things that this group would like to tackle together. Does that sound correct? Yeah, I see some nods, I see some thumbs up. Figuring out how to better contact residents in the district through block club associations, making closer connections, outreach, developing some better outreach strategies that we could all use together. Yeah, George?
I the one that had the two things about block clubs and stuff. The way to phrase the question, it was hard to do because the problem with contacting block clubs, which would be a good thing to do, is that there are no block clubs. The ones that exist are very nebulous. It's like you don't look up on a list and say, oh, call this number and talk to those people and set up a meeting, because there really isn't any. On my street, we're block clubbable and have been for over a decade, and it's never happened because it's the city of Buffalo. They have this very arcane, hard to, if you want to just make a block club, you literally, it's in the rules and everything, you have to have your elected board of president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary to start your club. Elected, like in other words, you get the street together and then you all as a street or whatever elect this board of people to do all the rest of it. So there's a couple of official block clubs in Buffalo, but by and large, you go into a neighborhood and you're wondering, why don't people do block clubs? So I didn't put it, I posed my question as how do we help people start, not so that we could start their block club, but you realize like, well, if you had the block club, the effectiveness of getting the word out about what we're doing would be that much easier. But you don't have the block club for us to talk to because of this other problem that's really got nothing to do with us. But again, it's a major thing in the way of, if there were more block clubs in Buffalo, a lot of this could go way faster, but there aren't. And it's because of this weird, I've talked to people, council people stuff, no one even really seems to care or understand that it's majorly in the way, and if it's not designed to be in the way of people and you want to be more user friendly, then I don't understand why it isn't. So, but I do think it's a major thing. People want block clubs, and people in neighborhoods want block clubs, but no one wants to go through all this nonsense to just make yourself a city recognized registered block club either. So that fights
So
against you getting.
How might you, what do you see as like the commercial district's role in that? Is it in like organizing residents? Is it like kind of informal block clubs, you know, helping?
Maybe it's not, it's, yeah, helping and encouraging in a way that's mutually, like it's mutually beneficial. A block club can benefit a corner store, and the corner store has you know, people are gathering, if not to have the meeting, they're there to know that a meeting is going to take place, for instance. And then of course, having the business owner have a stake in it, they might be a member, you know, they might live in the neighborhood themselves, they might want to be a member of the block club themselves, but they don't want to head up the block club. But then it still runs up against the wall of, in the city of Buffalo, you got to have this board of elected people that, and then, oh, and you have to pay dues right up front. Like, in other words, it's not just a matter of politically organizing your street into who's the selected board of people, but also everybody in the club, for the club to be official, has to kick in their money to get the whole ball rolling. And that's just to have a block club So you could have a party in the summer for a block club party and get some hot dogs from downtown. So to go through all of that, and then for what we're dealing with here is substantially more impactful, but you can't do the simplest thing because the city has this block club thing in the way. It's like, okay, well, on the one hand, then it's like, so can you go on television? It's like, oh, that's money and all this. It's like, this is a non-money thing, but it's not, it's a grassroots thing that has to at least be acknowledged or recognized as holding things up. I don't know
So
if you
let me
can
ask.
solve it,
Mhm.
but
So let me ask you this. Does this somewhat come to the root? In what ways can we connect businesses with residents?
yeah,
Is that, yeah?
yeah,
Okay. So I
yeah.
added that. I added that,
And
but I wanted to make sure that
I
that
can,
was.
and I would put in like what happens now is something like what's going on gets its attention in the community. Say is the a church, one of the big churches on Ferry, and they had a conference. They have a Zoom thing going on. They have a big auditorium, and the word gets out that way. And they're also associated with a block club in their neighborhood over by Moselle or something like that. That doesn't really get it out because again, everything falls into what's associated with the church, and then the block club's associated with the church, and then there's also council member is into this block club zone. It turns into a thing like that as opposed to just merely a organizational thing for that's
So
the benefit of the people in the neighborhood.
it sounds like you also have a policy question here.
Mm.
So how to better understand the system or the policies.
Yeah, I think that's more what it is. It's in order to crack that nut as an entity ourselves, we have to understand what is going on because you'll run into the same wall. Sometimes you'll have a block club and it'll seem okay. And you're like, well, why isn't this replicated already replicated across the city? It's like, because when you try and do it, how these people did it and how nice it looks should lead into like, okay, so someone's been helping them to get to this spot and they got everything going, but it's not helping everybody. You got to be in this particular block club to get anywhere. If there's no block club, you can't encourage people to make a block club because I just told you what stopped it in the first place. So, and then the other ones have been around for a minute. So whatever they did in the midst of time has been done. And so you kind of have to get into or at least acknowledge that this block club thing, everything that's good about a block club for communication, for this, for that, somehow has to be kind of at least a overall strategy on our part with, okay, well, it's almost like you have to have a mini block club session and then get this information out too and say, well, the rest of it can be in y'all's hands, but at least we know what to tell y'all to do because
or we use a different tool. Right? Or we find a different tool.
Or find a different tool. At least we know why we're trying to find something else, though. It's not like a mystery of why do we keep running into this? It's like this is monolithic. I don't care what side of town you go to, North Buffalo, South Buffalo, it's all the same thing. But when you see the clubs out there, it's like that's because they did something a while back and they've been a well-oiled machine now, but they're just that's use them when you find them, but at least you know what's going on.
So George, let me ask you if this, and then we'll come back to Sydney. George, let me just ask you if this captures it, and if not, please tell me we could change it. How to better understand the systems affecting block clubs and resident engagement.
Yes.
Okay. Kate, Sydney?
Sydney says how to dispel apathy and distrust of community members. And then she followed that up, I think, with George speaking, she added how to break up the cliques in the city.
Okay. Let's add those to the list.
That's yes. Yeah.
Break up the cliques in the city. All right. Well, this is great because I still see people typing and I still see a lot of movement happening on the board. But what I do want to get to just a little bit of convergence today, just so that people feel like there's some point that they can leave with or something to look forward to for a future conversation. So feel free to keep adding to the board what I'm going to have you do. So there's a really cool voting tool on this application. And it looks like we have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 16 sort of the goal statements up top and probably 25 or so on the bottom. Why don't I give everybody, does 10 votes sound good? 5 for the top and 5 for the bottom, or is that too little? I'm going to give everyone to see what are the things that people are really excited about moving forward and having a further conversation on. So I could also say, you know, we could say 10 for the bottom and 5 for the top or something like that. I could give everyone 15 votes. Does that sound good? So I will go ahead and start a voting session. You can see my screen right now, so you can see what I'm doing. And we'll do 15 votes. And all you have to do is click on any cards that speak to you. Even if, again, remember in Convergence, even if an idea is a little bit out of the box, or maybe if it speaks to you in some way or makes you excited, or you think, hey, I think we should do something like that, go ahead and click on it and put a vote on that card. So you can just click on them. And a reminder to do 5 in the Y section in those blue cards up top, and 10 votes on the purple and green section below. And while you're looking at each other's thoughts and ideas, it's totally okay to keep adding because you might come up with new ideas from reading others.
Sydney's having a hard time being able to vote because she's on her cell phone. So.
And Sydney, if you, I mean, you're welcome to say, can you read all of the cards, or is that hard to?
No, she said the rating's too small for her to read.
Okay.
Sydney, yeah, when I blow the screen up, the writing is all blurred, but I am signing on without Zoom to just be in the corridor session to see if I can just look at it on my laptop, but be on Zoom on my phone to see if that helps.
Okay. Another thing you can do, Sydney, is if certain things that were being said strike you, like you want to, you know, continue the block club conversation or the funding conversation, the beautification conversations that have been happening on this, you can type it in the chat and maybe Kate or I could vote for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Is the voting working? Are people able to click on things? Yeah, okay. On my end, I'm not seeing it the same way. Let me know once you're done.
Let me know.
I think I'm done. How many was it again? Five on the top and then four on the bottom?
10 on the bottom.
10 on the bottom. Okay, hang on. Now I got some more on the bottom.
It looks like people are still reading the screens. if you have finished with your votes, go ahead and do the raise hand feature on your Zoom, please. And Sydney, if you're not able to type things out, you can always, we can connect another way offline and add your votes to this.
Well, I don't know if I'm voting right, but I've been clicking on boxes and it's been putting like a number 1 on them.
Oh yeah,
vote?
yeah, you're voting. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm doing it on my computer. Like I said, Zoom is on my phone, but I'm using this on my computer.
Cool. I'm glad that it worked. I see a couple people raising their hands. Okay, so new hands went up. So it looks like some people are finished. Yep.
I want a brown hand, Brandy. How did you do that?
Yeah.
You know what? Don't give me the line. I was just playing around with it one day and boom, here we are. I think it's something in the in the settings. Yeah, go into the settings.
It is in the settings. You can pick, there's like 5 or 6 different tones.
Yeah, I see it. Very cool.
Nice.
Well, while you guys are mentioning that, I think we need a session on just learning how to use these creative tools efficiently.
I agree.
This is why Siren is on our team. One of the very important reasons that Siren is on our team, because if I was doing this, this would not have happened, because this is definitely not my skill set.
These tools, Siren, that you have brought to us have been mind-bending. They've been so powerful. They just are like, it's like a kid in a candy store, like opening up Christmas morning, you know, presents. It's just wonderful. And I don't know if I would have ever come across these tools if it wasn't for you.
Wow.
You're doing a great job with this. Yeah.
I agree. I had the opportunity to have a one-on-one with Syra, and I felt like I needed to have another 6-week session because I'm like, where have you been all my life? So it was definitely useful in having that one-on-one time with her. So please take advantage for those of you who can, you know, carve out some time because it's beneficial for sure.
I am available. It is in my, you know, my work. So if anyone wants to go deeper on any of these sessions or anything that we talked about that's really particular to you and your district, I'm available for that.
And happy belated birthday too. Didn't mean to blow up your spot, but I love celebrating birthdays.
Yeah.
Oh wait, when was
Happy birthday?
It was 2 days ago.
Oh, happy birthday. So we're both Capricorns. Mine was Friday.
Oh, happy birthday, other fellow
birthday.
Cappy.
Capricorn is big
We'll have
business.
to go out for lunch or something.
I would love to. I would love to. So it looks like most people are done voting. I am going to stop the votes. End voting session. And is everyone done? Or do we have a few more? We have a few more minutes, so I can leave it open for another minute if need be. No one's saying anything, so I'm going to end it. And so you can see on my screen the outcomes of the votes. Are you able to still see my screen?
Yes.
Cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to condense all of this information. So there were 6 votes on how might we use this data to attract and administer resources, how to market projects to attract contractors and architects, engineers, how to create a clearinghouse and or district communication on opportunities as they come through. It sounds like communication tools, working with contractors and engineers on projects, and attracting resources as a group. I will go through and I can keep this page and share back with all of you. I'm going to go ahead and organize also the why what's stopping you tool so that it makes a little bit more sense, and I'll share it out to all of you as a follow-up. I want to take the last 3 minutes to just get a little debrief. I know that Essence already kind of started that. I wanted to just you know, as I shared with you all, I'm a graduate student. These tools are new for me, and Tyra has asked me to share some of these tools at a session next week for a different group of people. So I wanted to get some feedback on, you know, whether this was fun, useful, waste of time. It sounds like not a waste
Oh,
of
so
time.
we're the guinea pig. You say we're the guinea pig.
Well, you're not the first. You're not the first guinea pigs. I've done this
We
with
were the
several
first.
other groups.
She did it with us for a little bit, but I said that you guys were very amenable and I thought you'd be excited. So I gave her the thumbs up before she tried it.
I did ask Kate, I was like, is this too out of the box? Or
Oh, absolutely. This is what we need. Maybe just like a quick like get our toes wet. The warm up was really good, but just kind of just let us know it's coming, because it could be a little overwhelming just looking at it for the first time. But just like, you know, if there's like a commercial kind of 30-second, you know, type of deal, this program has, that would be good, just to kind of let people know it's not
That's a good idea.
scary.
Right. In other times I have done like a more extended training of like having people create their own post-it notes and creating shapes and like, you know, making mind maps and stuff. So those are things we can do. I'll just share with you ahead of time, Essence, just for a 30-second commercial. These are some other tools that we can use if we want to actually do some brainstorming. So there's lots of tools here. You can see a lot of tools that I have on like developing ideas using different matrices and things like that. It all depends on what the question is at hand and what we want to focus on. But you know, based on where we were and what we were doing, it seemed to make sense to start with this kind of a tool to get our goals in line and kind of co-create that together.
Yeah, it would be great to see what has actually come of groups using this specific tool. Like from this tool, they were able to X, Y, and Z, you know, to give us that inspiration.
Yeah, actually, I can ask one of my professors who's super proficient at this tool and taught me a lot of things, if he would mind sharing. And he is a consultant with like some major companies across the country, and he works with like the different airline companies and things. And I think he uses this tool pretty regularly. So I'll see if he might be willing to share anything, if he has anything. Well, thank you, everybody. I will clean this up and I will send you a follow-up. This will be used as our jumping off point for continued conversations. So, you know, this is not the end of this. Kate, would you mind throwing the survey link in the chat? So today's survey has 2 additional questions that the last 5 sessions did not have, just cumulative understanding of how the 6-session series went for all of you. I know, George, this was your first time, so you might just hit NA for some of those things. But, you know, just answer to the best that you can.
I'm also going to share the box link file.
Oh, yes. Yes. And you're also able to come back to this mural file, this mural link. So you have the link. If you want to save it, you can come back and look at it. Again, I will be organizing it a little bit, so it might look different in, you know, a week or so. But
this has been great, Siren.
good. I'm glad it was useful. I was a little bit nervous.
Yeah, this is awesome. You all did a great job. You did, Liz, the team did a great job with this. It's very meaningful.
Listen, I'm just here for backup support. It's all her.
It's all Siren. Yeah, that's
all
right.
Siren.
Sure.
That's what it is. It's all Siren.
That's right.
I'm gonna make her take the compliments. And I am not taking any of them, Essence. You threw the list team in there and I was like, yeah, it had nothing to do with me.
Well, you did present at one, you know, there was definitely different list people presenting, sharing knowledge.
Most of this was all you, my friend. Most of this was all you. Take it.
Give it to her.
Thank you, everybody. It was a pleasure getting to know all of you and your organizations better. And as I shared in an earlier session, I did chat with our executive director, and there's certainly some opportunities to continue conversations beyond this 6-session series. So you'll be hearing from me. Thank you all so much. And yeah, I'm available for one-on-ones. So now that we have all of this information, if you want to go deeper on anything, please do reach out.
One of the things I would say about the Survey Monkey is, just so that you all know, UBRI does read the surveys, and they do look at, you know, what you're interested in, what you're requesting, particularly because 3 of the LPAs are on the calls and have been participating. So I can never make any promises as to what they'll do next, but the more positive something is and the more, you know, you're interested in it, that does get, I just want you to know it does get communicated to UBRI and does get to communicated to the funders that allowed us to do this this year. So just a little FYI. I'm not plugging anything. This is full disclosure. I'm not plugging anything, but I want you to know that they do read them and they do see them.
Yes. And Sydney, yeah, I'm actually just going to add your question of how can we get training on these tools to this list so I don't forget it. I know this is a reach, but in-plan training would be great. Carl, can you elaborate on in-plan training?
It's sorry, first of all, thank you for letting me back in. That was my timeout was very short, so a lot shorter than I thought it was going to be. But in-plan is a tool that you can use for economic redevelopment. Basically, what you do is if you want to say how much, for example, of how much some sort of improvement in a business district will help the business district economically. You put in all the inputs, the outputs, and some of the conditions, and it'll churn out for you how much economic redevelopment will happen based on what you're looking to do. So if you were going to do a large business, or maybe even put together a plan for an area, you can use that tool. The problem is it's somewhat costly. I know UBRI uses it. All the government agencies use it when they're doing economic forecast of what some sort of investment would do for a community. Those type of things. The one that I took a seminar on it, and the one they did was the what economic development, what economic benefits would happen from a boat show, having a boat show. But you can apply it to a building, you can apply it to like an area. So it would be a nice tool to get some training on.
Carl, I also put in a stateofplace.co/book demo link in the chat, which also seems like a very similar kind of like a scenario planning tool where you say, if these are the inputs, this is how it affects all these other things. It would be great to be able to look at, all the different tools available and which one is most cost effective. And if we could go in on something to get, like if LISC was to be able to help get some training on a tool or get access to a tool that other districts could use, I think that would be a cool thing to approach and to look at. So I threw in this other one too, and I put the in-plan, I put that on the mural board so it doesn't get lost and so that it's included in the follow-up conversations.
Thank you.
And it's after 12, so if you want to leave, you can. If you want to stay and chat, you're welcome to. I will stay on to answer any questions or any follow-up.
Hey, Brandy. I don't know if she's still here.
Oh, she said thank you all, and then looks like she'd bounced.
Yeah. Okay.
Bye, George.
I want to catch up with her on the Gus Macker thing. So.
Yeah.
Okay. No, thanks. Thanks, everybody.
And Carl, I think one of the things is I had said last week that maybe there's a conversation that you and Syra and possibly I could have going forward, because I know you're trying to restart some things.
Sure.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, we can maybe schedule some time, and then we can chat. Is it about the business association?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Let me do this first. Let me reach back. I was asked this. Actually, I was told this about a week and a half ago. So I'll reach out to the person who used to run it And it's in place. They have some funding money, a small amount, a couple thousand, but it hasn't been, it was sort of what defunct. And I think part of it was due to COVID, people just didn't want to get together type of thing. So there are some folks are meaning to rekindle that organization. So and I think it'd be a great idea to get connected to them, but not only that, but to connect them to this series, because this series is really, I thought was just outstanding. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna recommend this, at least watching the videos or the recordings of this to other folks. And I think I put this in my last survey or two, was that it would be great to maybe have these maybe off hours, anything after like say 6 p.m. Or say a Saturday morning early for those folks who work full time and can't get away to attend these. This is definitely beyond what I thought it was going to be. So hats off to everybody at LISC, and I really do appreciate everything you guys have done so far.
Thank you, Carl. It's so nice to hear.
That's
yeah,
right. You could just send the money, send the payment to wherever. No, that's great. No, thank you.
thank you. Yes, we'll be following up and hopefully be doing more of these and different hours as well. So we'll see what makes sense going forward.
All right, I'm going to stop the recording, Syra, and